Corpses strewn about below foreshadow an unexpected arrival. Before long, golden blades fall from the sky, tearing everything to shreds. With the blinding sun behind its back, the savage sniper appears. Those who try to evade their inevitable deaths by going in for the attack will only succeed at fulfilling the creature's cravings. As it soars high into the sky and marks another golden rainbow.
Boys and girls, Douglas and Digheads, it's your man Zach 908, aka the Dig Dug himself, and ladies and gents, we have I have the grand pleasure of introducing to you, for maybe the first time, but not the last time, Seregios. That's right, my man, the forgotten flagship, was remembered. Shout out to Capcom for bringing him back into the game. Nevertheless, let's talk a little bit about my man. So, he's a 4th generation monster. He was the 4U flagship? Question mark? I'm pretty sure Gore Magala was the 4 flagship. It's kind of hard, like, because I mean, even if that wasn't the case, Gore Magala is still on the 4U cover art. It's kind of awkward. I'm gonna say that they share it. It was something I wasn't 100% for sure about either way, but nevertheless, Gore Magala and Seregios make their debut in the 4U, or the 4th generation, whereas Seregios is the flagship. I'm almost 100% positive for 4U, even though Gore Magala's on the cover. Nevertheless, the whole point of this is he was the quote-unquote true invader monster. His whole thing was invading different territories. That was his whole shtick. He would come in from a land that we never knew about and just pull up and be like, you know, I'm fighting everyone all the time, everywhere. It didn't matter where you was at, where you was located, what locale you was in, cold, hot, wet, the whole nine. He was there fighting people, just getting it in. He was the true thug. Okay, he was what Devil Joe was without the fanfare. But with rather the fanfare, because he pulled up hard by him. Had a whole dope cutscene about pulling up on people. It was amazing. I loved it. He was actually the very first Apex monster in the game. Would you believe it? I don't know. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so Seregios is a really cool guy. He has a long history. He's a fan favorite. He's one of my favorites, truth be told. He was super unique. He introduced the bleed blight, if you want to call it that, a blight. Anyway, he introduced bleed to the series, so it was really, really cool. So with that said, let's talk about what he can do now as opposed to what he could do back then. Now, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you guys. He's easier now than he was before. By that I mean they took certain things away from him back in the day, and well, they took things that he had back in the day and didn't give it back to him in the current day, which is a little odd. So first off the top, let's talk about what he can do. His main thing is swiping at you with his talons and throwing out scales from his body that they themselves will do the bleed. Now, back in the day, you'll hear me say that quite a bit. Back in the day, he used to use his talons to actually do some blight as well. Excuse me, some bleed as well. He would like scratch you with his talons, and there'd be this little weird special effect at the end of his talons. It looked like I don't know, kind of like popcorn, honestly. But if he hit you with it, you would get hit with bleed as well, on top of the scales flinging at you. So they took that away from him. He can't necessarily bleed you with his talons. Maybe he still can. I don't know, because I've been hit with it quite a few times, and I've never been bled off of it. But you can walk into a single scale and bleed immediately. So what I will say off the top is that if you're fighting this guy, if you're not using a lance or a weapon with a shield or something like that, you may not run into too much bleed, but it's still always a good thing to bring some sushi fish, so that way you can take care of the bleed right away. Granted, again, like I said, you may not get hit with it unless you get hit with the scale or a weird mix-up, or if you just happen to still get hit with the talons and they themselves still cause the bleed. But nevertheless, he can do that. What else can he do? I'm not gonna hold you. That's his whole shtick. He likes to swing around the skies, fly through the skies at high speeds. My man is real swift with it. He will swing at you from one direction, swoop back at you from the other direction. He can, like, I know this sounds silly, but that's what he'll do. He'll swing in from one side, come back, and not necessarily come back around, jump back out and swing at you from the other side. He can do this with it just being the one side. He can do a really cool pinning attack where okay, this one's kind of odd. It's another one of those super attacks, those signature abilities, where the camera pans out a bit. So when the camera pans out a bit, it's not a Nova. He's just swooping in at a very weird, like, arcing angle and he'll swoop you up, and then like he'll tussle you with the talons. I'm not gonna lie to you, didn't get hit by it, not once. He doesn't do it as often as he used to, because back in the day, again, there it is. Back in the day, he used to do it, not necessarily all the time, but you would definitely see him do it a number of times within the fight. So like, let's say you have like a 10-15 minute fight, he'll do it like 3 times. Whereas in this case, I think I maybe seen him do it twice within, I think maybe this fight and all the times I grinded him to get his gear. By the way, his gear is immense. We'll get to the gear in a second, but yes, if you're gonna actually fight this guy, bring yourself some electricity. The Astos is a very, 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 very good, not necessarily recipient, but candidate to use its gear to actually slap him. It melts. Okay, his stuff just melts. You have great sharpness, decent element, great affinity. You're gonna do numbers against this guy. He himself is like a giant hitbox. You can just slap him for free. Now, I think I spoke about his attacks really. Again, just be wary of his feet. Watch for the feet. He does everything usually from the feet. He can do a couple things from his tail, which is, you know, okay, that's pretty cool and everything. Mostly just like sweeps and slaps or whatever. But most of his attacking is going to come from his talons and by him throwing the scales out. Again, remember, if you walk into a scale, automatic bleed. The talons, I don't think bleed anymore, so he's going to use them to do lots of damage by either running through you or like kind of picking at you from the ground with his feet. But yeah, let's talk about the gear. His gear is literally legendary and it's still godlike. Okay, so completely off the top, we're looking at Blade Scale Hone. Blade Scale Hone is an incredible ability because what it used to do, there we go again. What it used to do back in the day is the ability itself would, it would trigger if you would roll or evade or whatever. So let's say you have a weapon in hand, one of his weapons in hand. It used to be just one of his weapons, but now they made an ability for the armor set. So a lot of people like it, a lot of people don't like it. I kind of do, and I also kind of don't, because it makes sense to put it on the armor, but it also makes sense to put it on the weapon. Anyway, when you roll, you have a chance to actually, I think you have to roll, I think like 3 or so times, I think 3 or 4 times, then your weapon will regain a sharpness. So it's a very, very good ability to use whenever you have like a weapon that does a lot of evading. Lancing, when you ever do the little scoot ups or whatever, also works too. If you're also using like sword and shield, great sword, dual blades, anything that has like dashes, well, great sword have dash, but if you have dashes, these work for that as well. So that it's not always rolls, it's mostly just the evading properties. Outside of that, obviously godlike ability, godlike. I can't express how godlike it is. Moving on, the next one is Constitution, which helps with your evading and reduces the fixed stamina depletion. So let's say whenever you evade, it takes 10% stamina. This reduces that 10% by like 30% or whatever. So it helps with the evading. Outside of that, on top of that, rather, you get evade window, increases your invulnerability window when you evade. Again, it all goes into the evading and all goes to blade hold skill. Handicraft, so that way you have a little bit more sharpness. It's always great, always godlike. Wall runner boost, which actually decreases the stamina when you wall run. No, yeah, I think it does that and increases the speed in which your wire bug recharge or something like that. I don't know, it's not a great ability, but it's still dope, notable to have. And then yeah, wall runner is the one that does the stamina boost, does like attack or something like that, or increases the speed in which your thing comes back. Nevertheless, still decent. Okay, but the big juicer is evade extender. Now the evade extender is another godlike ability. Again, all of these skills work with the evasion, that work with the fact that you have to roll around, evade, dash, do whatever you have to do to regain the sharpness of your weapon to keep it at maximum sharpness. Now it also helps the fact that his weapons have pretty solid attack. They're very akin to that of Astos. I think on the average like 10 more attack on average with the raw. The sharpness is very similar, but with the handicraft, you're gonna be doing a little extra. You're gonna have a little extra sharpness. It's always great to have. Now, I would recommend his weapons across the board. They are raw. They do have affinity, no element, but they're raw. They're very solid raw weapons. I don't think they get natural purple, but they're still very, very good weapons to have, because a lot of weapons in this particular rank and time, they would have similar sharpness, maybe similar element, but they won't have affinity, or they'll have negative affinity, or the element won't be that high. This is like having the very good raw with some very good sharpness. It's just a very good weapon. It's not the top tier in this particular class, but it's still very nice to have. And because it's a flagship, he has a weapon for you in every category. So to recap, Seregios is an incredibly cool monster. His design is beyond godlike. He made his introduction in the 4th generation. He was a 4U flagship, so that means he has weapons for you in every single category. So if you rock whatever you rock, he's going to have a weapon for you if you find his weapons to be quite nice. I recommend the weapons are pretty good. His armor is fantastic. The blade hunt ability is amazing. And then all the cool skills that stack on top of that are very useful as well. If you're going to be fighting this guy, of course, you want to bring yourself some thunder element. It does wonders against this guy. Astos weapons are fantastic because they have great sharpness, pretty great attack, and very decent element, but also with the plus 2 affinity. I think usually about 20 affinity, so it's always good to have the extra little oomph when it goes to fight this guy. Outside of that, he has a couple of attacks you have to really watch out for. He has this really weird pinning attack that if you can't block or don't necessarily see it coming, because it's kind of hard to see coming because he goes way out of your line of sight and he moves so quickly that he'll scoop you and it's not a good time. His biggest claim to fame is that he uses his talons and the ability for him to swoop in from multiple different directions to waylay you from all sides. That's his big thing. He'll come at you from the left, come at you from the right, swing from the back, come in through the front, go way up high out of your viewing angle, all that kind of thing. That's his particular claim to fame. And he sweeps down and slaps you relatively hard. He can fling his scales at you. When he does this, the scales themselves will cause the bleed element or blight or whatever you want to call it. Don't walk into the scales, block the scales, evade the scales, do what you have to do, but don't get hit by them, and you'll be in relatively decent hands. For a monster of his category, if you do get like bled, it's gonna be pretty tough to actually do away from that because he himself just does so much oppression. Okay, he's so oppressive. He gets in close and he stays close. He likes to be right there on top of you, and just when you think you got away, he's swooping in real close. All right, and then you're gonna be like in a scramble. You know, the scrambles is where he excels at, so you don't want to actually fight him on his particular home turf in that regard. But with that being said, everyone, this is the man Seregios. He's an amazing monster. I love this guy to death. I hope you guys love him too. He was the forgotten flagship of Monster Hunter. No one ever talked about him. Capcom just completely didn't mention him at all. But I'm glad to see him make a return in Sunbreak because he's such a cool monster. I hate to see him actually go the way of the Korapeko or even the Lagiacrus. Actually, no, definitely the way of the Korapeko. Korapeko has not been seen since the 3rd generation, period. But yeah, that's everything I have for you guys. Hopefully you guys found this video well. If you've learned something, give the video a like. If you didn't learn anything or didn't like the video, give the video a dislike. I'm totally okay with that. But with that said, it's been your boy. Tomorrow, Espinas. We have Espinas tomorrow. And then I think, again, I'm still on track for Saturday Gormagala. I'll let you guys know on that. I said Gormagala for sure on Saturday. But I still am not 100% sure, because Espinas is giving me a lot of oof. So yeah, we'll see. Nevertheless, guys, I'm trying to have a video out for you guys roughly every day for the remainder of this week, and if I can keep that up, that'll be fantastic. With that being said, it's been your boy. You all take care. Have a lovely day, whatever. May desire sense of forever be in your favor. I'll see you all next time. Take care.